From one jaw-dropping monologue changing the way you view one of the galaxy's biggest plot holes forever, to a big bad reveal catching just about everybody off guard. These are those science fiction happenings that next to nobody honestly saw coming, did they? Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are sci-fi movie reveals nobody was ready for. Maisie is a clone, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. After being introduced early in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom as the apparent granddaughter of Sir Benjamin Lockwood, John Hammond's former dino cloning partner, and on the back of a number of conversations consisting of Lockwood claiming she looks just like her apparent mother, and Maisie finding a photo with her old nanny Iris looking far younger beside a figure who could be the youngster's twin, one of the most unexpected twists in the franchise's history soon made itself known. Maisie was actually a genetically engineered clone, created in a similar way to the dinos occupying Lockwood Manor. But instead of being the sort of awesome game changer Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly were clearly hoping it'd be, the sight of the clone daughter of Lockwood bizarrely bonding with the dinos she explained were alive, like me, had the wrong sort of unanticipated impact. The fact this odd reveal was then somewhat retconned in Dominion, with Maisie actually being revealed to have been carried by her mother/genetic template Charlotte in the womb, tells you all you need to know about how poorly received this particular shock revelation ultimately was. The Skrulls were refugees, Captain Marvel, catching just about every comic book diehard off guard partway through the Captain Marvel big screen action. Talos' big reveal sat as yet another example of the MCU putting their own unique spin on the source material. Instead of leaning into their comic history as a mega threat in the universe that could act as the force to step up as the MCU's next huge villainous presence in the wake of Thanos' time in the spotlight, the Skrulls were actually revealed to be refugees, trying to find a new home after theirs was destroyed by the Kree. Up to that point, Talos and his Skrull pals had largely been positioned as the shape-shifting antagonists of the prequel flick. But once the deeply unexpected truth is explained, and brilliantly delivered by a Ben Mendelsohn, audiences just generally accepted as the go-to mustache-twiddling baddie, it's hard not to feel a little ashamed that you ever believed this beaten-down race were the group to be feared. However, those completely wrong-footed by this brilliant swerve get their villainous Skrull fix in the Secret Invasion Disney Plus series. Galen Erso's Death Star plan, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The second Disney and Lucasfilm announced they were forging a prequel Star Wars story based on the events that unfolded just before the original trilogy got underway. Fans fully anticipated a few glorious bits of detail to be infused into the feature that would hopefully enhance the already beloved episodes 4 to 6. But even the most optimistic of Force-sensitive souls out there still likely didn't predict one of the most annoying plot holes in Star Wars history being surprisingly made sense of by the time Rogue One blasted off into hyperspace. That's precisely what remarkably went down, however, with many being forced to assume for decades that the arrogant Empire had just foolishly built an easily missable flaw into their planet-killing space station. The 2016 flick eventually stunned audiences the world over by revealing this was actually a very deliberate feature, placed there by a Galen Erso who had been forced into working for the bad guys and developing the Death Star. The clever scientist snuck a small thermal exhaust port into the designs of the superweapon that, when hit with a precise shot, could set about a chain reaction that would bring down the Empire's grand project, delivering the all-important information about his trap being tucked away in the plans found on Scarif in an emotional hologram monologue message to his abandoned daughter. This one hit like a sudden Death Star blast to Alderaan. Too soon, still too soon. The major twist, Ghost in the Shell. Heading into the 2017 live-action Hollywood adaptation of much-loved manga Ghost in the Shell, many were understandably frustrated about the casting of white actor Scarlett Johansson in the role of the Major. So in a bid to seemingly justify this whitewashing of the leading character, the folks behind the seemingly already doomed incoming sci-fi offering decided to unleash a swerve that nobody honestly saw coming, and with good bloody reason. On the back of being initially introduced as Major Mira Killian, Johansson's leading cyborg is ultimately revealed to actually be a Japanese girl by the name of Motoko Kusanagi, with that youngster's brain being inserted into this particular shell after her memory was erased. Sure enough, said hilariously dumb bombshell only succeeded in further pissing off those already annoyed by Paramount's call to keep from casting a Japanese actor in the central role in the first place. Ghost in the Shell's late twist wasn't just something nobody was ready for, it was a tone-deaf development that very few desperately needed in their lives. Zurg is Buzz, but older, Lightyear. Those who did bother to dive into the tale that was supposedly the movie that made Andy fall in love with everyone's favorite space ranger were treated to one heck of a twist when it came to the reveal of precisely who was sitting behind the mask of Buzz Lightyear's mortal enemy, Zurg. Rather than simply retreading the path already wandered down in Toy Story 2, however, this particular iteration of the purple big bad wasn't actually Lightyear's father this time around. Nope, this was Buzz from the the future. This all comes about on the back of Buzz trying to get his stranded crew off to Carney Prime by using hyperspace fuel, with each unsuccessful test flight resulting in time dilation that causes him to miss years for every couple of minutes he spends trying to return home. However, it turns out that OG timeline Buzz managed to successfully reach hyperspace before our Buzz, blasted himself hundreds of years into the future, discovered he could then jump back in time after getting his hands on advanced tech, and will now stop at nothing to prevent his crew from ever landing on the planet. All in all, it's a fun, if ever so slightly confusing take on a character many thought they had completely figured out after taking in those prior Toy Story entries. The ancient truth, the cabin in the woods. Admittedly, a quick glance at the trailers heading into 2011's spooky sci-fi delight, The Cabin in the Woods, definitely hinted at this being a little more than a cheeky deconstruction of the horror genre. However, you would be lying if you said you called just about any of the jaw-dropping swerves that were eventually fired our doomed protagonist's way during the runtime. But if the reveal that the titular cabin amidst the trees and its surroundings were actually being controlled by a bunch of gambling engineers and other underground figures wasn't enough of a shock twist in the tale for you, then the even bigger reveal late on likely did the trick and then some. As the final survivors of the group of 5 just about escape an ensemble of nightmarish monsters, Dana and Marty are soon informed by Sigourney Weaver's director that this was all simply a ritual created to appease the ancient ones below, with a number of other similar examples happening across the globe in a bid to keep the world from ending. Who honestly had underground deities threatening to rip apart our planet if 5 carefully selected slasher movie archetypes weren't picked off one by vicious creatures on their betting slip heading into this one? No, you didn't. Ava was manipulating Caleb, Ex Machina. 2014's Ex Machina doesn't half go out with a bang as the gripping AI experiment takes a few staggering late turns, with off-center tech CEO Nathan seemingly just trying to see if Caleb is convinced that his AI robot Ava actually possesses consciousness and the ability to think on her own. It's eventually revealed that there was far more to this test than initially met the eye. Nathan had been purposefully allowing Caleb to fall in love with Ava throughout their numerous meetings, as a way of effectively showcasing that she does very much hold true consciousness. Sensing that Nathan had actually been watching the lovebirds when the Ava-induced power outages killed off the surveillance, however, Caleb went ahead and set the pair's robo-breakout plan in motion the night before when the tech whiz was passed out. But the real kicker comes when the actual smartest being in the room is ultimately revealed to have been playing everyone to perfection all along, with Ava eventually wandering out of the facility after killing Nathan and leaving a masterfully manipulated Caleb locked inside. As her brilliant plan to break free finally comes to fruition, the Invisible Man is revealed. The Invisible Man. Sitting as one of the most repeatedly shocking features of the 2020s so far, the Invisible Man wasn't content with simply providing sci-fi fright fans with a few completely unexpected visuals and jump scares. It definitely supplied its fair share, mind. With that restaurant moment leaving just about everyone watching on gripping their cutlery for dear life the next time they ventured out for a bite to eat. However, it was in the other sudden twists in the tale that the true gold of this contemporary adaptation of the titular novel could be just about seen. After believing throughout the picture that poor Cecilia is being tormented and targeted by her supposedly deceased abusive scientist ex-boyfriend Adrian in an Invisible Man suit, she is finally able to pierce the tech in her pal's home and peel back the mask. Only instead of finding Adrian under the gear, Cecilia actually discovers that it's Tom, his brother. This absolute shocker pretty much confirms there and then the theory that 2 invisible suits could have been in play throughout, but it still came right out of the blue in the moment and brought the additional stinger of Cecilia still not being entirely free of her horrendous ex. Cooper is trying to reach out to himself. Interstellar. Not exactly light on reveals capable of leaving you entirely stunned, Christopher Nolan's sci-fi masterpiece by the name of Interstellar had audiences utterly gripped for 169 epic minutes. And while the unexpected arrival of Matt Damon's Man and his subsequent attempts to shockingly and desperately find a way back home unquestionably sits up there as one of the finest twists the flick has to offer, this was merely the revelatory appetizer as far as the legendary filmmaker was concerned. Early on in the tale, Cooper's daughter is convinced that her room is haunted, with many a book being oddly launched off her bookcase. As the epic mission to find a new planet for the human race to occupy reaches its thrilling climax though, Cooper ending up in another dimension soon leads to the discovery that it was actually him behind Murph's strange tumbling books and the dusty messages they threw out. Cooper is then able to communicate humanity-saving information to his child from within this 5th dimension, with a young Murph's earlier line of thinking her father was her ghost, ultimately foreshadowing a reveal that not a single soul was still in any way ready for. That's no flying saucer, nope. It felt pretty safe to believe that some sort of alien spacecraft was at the center of the chilling drama and unexpected comedy that were set to fall out of nope. up. Rather than saving the surprising twist until the closing stages of his daylight dose of terror though, Peele instead opted to drop the game-changing bombshell partway through the action, with it being made known that this actually wasn't an extraterrestrial flying saucer at all. It was actually a full-blown alien creature, and far from abducting humans and other beings, this super predator the Hayward siblings had been surveying had actually been sucking up living beings and chowing down on their flesh. An already unsettling scenario is dialed up a few more horrifying notches with one of the most chilling and inspired sci-fi reveals of recent times.